Last year, a former titan of the European startup scene delisted from the public markets, and nobody noticed. This company was Rocket Internet, one of the most controversial incubators of all time. In this video, I'm going to share the story of Rocket Internet. I'm going to tell about my own experiences in the German entrepreneurship ecosystem, and we're going to end on an interesting question. So let's start with the German entrepreneurship ecosystem. I'm there for the first time, at least as an entrepreneurship educator, building and architecting an entrepreneurship program at the University of Aachen. And this is the first of its kind program, one of these experiential entrepreneurship programs that I've spent most of my life building and developing. And my host is a gentleman named Max, and he's a lovely guy, really smart, awesome dude. But as we're walking over to the venue to deliver this program for the first time, as we're crossing the street, there's the painted lines on the crosswalk, which show you where to walk. One of these painted lines is just a little bit off. Max notices this, puts his hand on my shoulder and says, "Cam, I am so sorry you have to see this. Please understand that this is not representative of our approach towards you or the program you're bringing or our feelings about American entrepreneurship." And I about lost my damn mind over this. Entrepreneurship is about moving fast. It's about being experimental. It's about not getting hung up on the details. And the fact that he is pointing out this problem, which I had never even noticed in the first place and really isn't a problem, gave me some hesitation. It gave me some pause about, I don't know if this is going to work. Now, we went ahead and we ran the entrepreneurship program, and it was beautiful and it was great and everyone loved it. And we had some good startups come out of there. Actually, the biggest ride-sharing company in Europe for several years emerged from that very first program. So this was in the 2000s when the German entrepreneurship ecosystem was still building. But at that time, in those very early stages, the Samar Brothers were the gods of the German startup scene. Samar Brothers were led by Oliver. Oliver, he went to Silicon Valley in the mid-90s and became obsessed with startups. When he came back, he wrote a thesis about American startups, Silicon Valley startups in particular, and trying to deconstruct their formula for success. He was a student of the game. Shortly after, he and his brothers started their first company, Alando. Alando was a straight-up eBay clone. There was nothing different at all in eBay and Alando. Basically the same thing. They just copied the entire thing. 100 days after launch, eBay buys Alando for $43 million. Not bad for 100 days' work. Now, Oliver regrets this decision immensely, the decision to sell to eBay. He was at the beginning of his ascent, and he then gave up a lot of opportunity and upside and power that he didn't want to get rid of, but he didn't know he was getting rid of it at the time. But he starts another company with his brothers, and eventually they form Rocket Internet. Rocket Internet, incubator, investor, that is a clone factory. All they do is study American and primarily Silicon Valley startups, and as soon as they start growing just the slightest bit, they build a clone in Germany. So with Groupon, they built a company called CityDeal, which they sold to Groupon for quite a lot of money. There was a YouTube clone. They had a Facebook clone called StudiFacet. And just to tell you about this Facebook clone, it was a direct copy. They changed nothing. They would hire ex-engineers from Facebook. And in the early days of this software, when you use it, sometimes you'd get an error message that said, "Oops, Facebook had a problem." What this means is that the engineers they had hired had cribbed actual Facebook code and were using it in this competing project. Now, I don't think there's many ways to look at that other than that's pretty terrible. That's a way that no one should be behaving in a startup ecosystem. Nonetheless, this strategy proves to be very fruitful. As they continue to build these clones, they're diversifying their risk, and what they're doing is posing a challenge to the American originators who are actually founding these companies. The question they're posing is, listen, you can come over here to Europe and continue to expand. But wouldn't it be easier, cheaper, and better for you just to come overseas? And if you buy us, you're already set. You've already got the talent, you've already got the market penetration, you'll be in a much better situation to continue your growth. Now, this is a shrewd business strategy, but again, seems against what we like to think of as originality, as entrepreneurship, as creativity, as the things that startups value. But this proves to be remarkably profitable for them and remarkably successful. They continue to grow until they don't. Again, they got delisted last year. Now, I was curious why, and reading an article about this, The Economist said that the reason that Rocket Internet failed was because other people were copying their model and doing it better. And they had struggled to adjust to these new competitors, which is ironic because paradoxically, Rocket Internet was innovative in how they were copying others. It's ironic in that eventually other people started copying them better than they could. So the interesting question here is, were they innovative? And I think they were. I think they were doing something unique, something special. I don't support it. And me and a lot of others really disagree with their particular role in a startup ecosystem. But I'm curious what you think. Were they innovative or were they imitators? Let me know your thoughts. Hope you dug this. Bye-bye.